March 1957, Winslow, Arizona. The Harvey House at the depot serves its last week of meals. For more than 30 years, the train stopped here so men could eat. Now the railroad has pulled the contract. The dining room closes Friday for good. Opal Maddox has worked that room for 33 years. This morning, a man from the head office hands her a final check and a handshake and tells her she is done. Nobody in that office remembers that she once fed 3,000 soldiers a day. Here is the story. The Harvey house sits long and low against the tracks. Pale stucco and red tile, the way the company built them all across the West. Inside there is a lunch counter with a curve of stools, and behind it, a dining room with white cloths on the tables and good heavy plates, and the smell of coffee that never quite leaves the walls. The Santa Fe runs past the front door. The deal was always simple. The train stopped. The men came in. They ate hot food off a real plate, fast and right. And then the whistle blew and they went on. Opal Maddox came to Winslow in 1924. She was 25. She came west on a one-way ticket to be a Harvey Girl, the way thousands of young women did. Black dress, white apron, a contract that said she would not marry for a year and would keep her shoes shined and her trays level. She meant to stay a season. She stayed 33 years. She learned the counter, then the floor, then the kitchen. By the war, she ran the whole house. She knew how to put a hot meal in front of 100 strangers in the 28 minutes a train sat at the platform and have the plates cleared and the tables reset before the next one came. It is a kind of genius nobody gives medals for. She had it. Now she is 58. And the man from the head office is explaining to her, kindly, that passenger trains do not stop to eat anymore. People drive, people fly. The dining cars carry their own galleys. The Harvey house is a beautiful old thing the company can no longer afford to keep lit. He is sorry. He says the word sorry, the way men say it when they have a train to catch. He hands her the check. He tells her the company thanks her for her years. Your years, he says, as if she could count them on the check. He does not know what her years were. He has her name on a form and a closing date on a calendar, and to him the war is a thing that happened in the newsreels. He was not standing on this platform in the winter of 1943. She was. The troop trains came through Winslow day and night for the better part of 4 years. Whole regiments on the move, boys headed for California and the ships. Boys coming back hollow-eyed who would not say from where. The trains did not stop long, 10 minutes, 15 if the boss was kind. And there were 3,000 hungry men a day passing through a town of 5,000 people. The army could not feed them fast enough on the move, so the Harvey house did. Opal Maddox ran it. Her girls made sandwiches by the thousand and brewed coffee in tubs. And when a train could not stop long enough for the men to come inside, they walked the length of it and handed the food up through the windows, into hands that grabbed it in the dark. Boys leaned out and called her ma'am and mother and 100 names that were not hers, and she fed them and waved them west, and a good many never came back from where the train was taking them. She did it for free. The Fred Harvey company donated the food. The town pitched in eggs and bread, and Opal Maddox stood on this platform in the cold for 4 years, feeding boys she would never see again. Nobody wrote it down. There was no time. There was another train coming. Now a man with a briefcase hands her a check and tells her she is done. Where are you watching from? Drop your state in the comments. I want to see how far this story reaches. A lot of those boys came from your town. It is a Tuesday, 3 days before the doors close for good. Down the platform, a tall man steps off a westbound that has stopped for water, and a 20-minute layover that used to be a meal stop. He is stiff from 2 days of sitting. Wide hat, brown coat. He came out to stretch his legs and to see, maybe, if the old Harvey house was still pouring coffee. Because he has eaten in 100 of them over the years, and they are closing now. One by one, all down the line. He is John Wayne. He is between pictures. A year after the Searchers reached theaters, riding west on business he meant to do quietly. The dining room is half stripped. 2 young women are folding the white cloths and stacking the heavy plates in crates. The brass is going dull. There is a smell of coffee and dust. Opal Maddox stands by the cold coffee urn with a check in her hand and looks at the room the way you look at a thing you are saying goodbye to, and she does not cry because she has 33 years of not crying in front of customers. Wayne comes in for a cup of coffee and finds a woman closing down a kingdom. He sits at the counter. There is still a pot on. One of the girls pours him a cup and apologizes that the pie is gone. They have sold it all down. The kitchen is closing. "This place shutting?" Wayne asks. "Friday," the girl says. 33 years she's run it. They're tearing out the kitchen. She nods toward the older woman by the urn. "That's Miss Opal. She's been here longer than I've been alive. Longer than anybody here." The girl lowers her voice. "They gave her a check this morning. They didn't even have a supper for her. Nothing, just a check." Wayne drinks his coffee and watches the woman fold a tablecloth she has folded 10,000 times. An old man comes through with a push broom. The platform red cap, gray now, who has carried bags at this depot since before the war. He knows Wayne's face and does not make a thing of it, which is its own kind of courtesy. Wayne nods at him, asks him low about the woman by the urn, and the old red cap tells him. He stands there leaning on his broom, and he tells Wayne about the winter of '43, the troop trains, the food handed up through the windows in the cold, 3,000 a day, for free, for 4 years. Boys who called her mother on their way to the ships. "She fed my boy," the old man says, "on his way to the Pacific. He wrote me about it." Said a lady in Arizona handed him a ham sandwich through the window at 2 in the morning, and it was the best thing he ever ate. He stops. He works the broom a little. He didn't come home, but he ate. She made sure he ate. Wayne sets down his cup. "Have you ever found out, all at once, that the quiet person in the corner of the room was once the whole reason 1,000 frightened boys felt like somebody back home still cared whether they lived? It rearranges a room, doesn't it? It rearranges how you look at a woman folding a tablecloth." He looks at Opal Maddox a long moment. He could finish his coffee. He could leave a $5 bill under the saucer for the girls and tip his hat to the old woman on his way out and call it a kindness, and climb back on the westbound, and by Flagstaff he would have a clean conscience and a good story. That would be charity, of a small and forgettable size. He puts on his hat, but he does not walk to the train. He walks to the woman by the urn. "Ma'am," he says. He takes the hat back off. "They tell me you ran this house through the war." Opal Maddox looks at him. She is too tired and too far inside her own goodbye to place the face. Or maybe she places it and is too well-mannered to say so. "I ran it a long time," she says. "Through the war, and before it and after. It's done now." She holds up the check, a little, and almost smiles. "They thanked me for my years." "The trains," Wayne says. "The boys. Through the windows." Something moves behind her eyes. "Who told you that?" "A man with a broom." Wayne turns the hat in his hands. "Says you fed them all, for free, for 4 years." "We didn't count," Opal says. "There was always another train." She looks out the window at the empty platform where the troop trains used to stand. "I fed so many of them, and I never knew a single name, and I think about them all the time." Her voice does not break. It just goes very quiet. "And now they're tearing out the kitchen. Who's left to remember a sandwich handed through a window 15 years ago?" "More of them than you'd think," Wayne says. "They've all gone on with their lives. The ones that lived." She folds the cloth in her hands one more time, smaller. "It's all right. It was a long time ago. You can't ask people to remember a supper." "No," Wayne says. "But you can call and remind them." She looks at him. "Where's your telephone?" he says. The phone is on the wall by the kitchen door. A black box with a crank gone to a dial. The line is still live. The company has not had it cut yet. Wayne takes off his coat and hangs it on the hook, and rolls his sleeves and gets the operator, and he starts making calls. He calls the Legion post in Winslow. He calls the one in Flagstaff, and the one in Holbrook, and the one in Gallup, over the line in New Mexico. He calls a man he knows at a veterans hall in Phoenix, and tells him to call 10 more. He does not say much on any of them. He says who he is, plainly, once, because the name opens a door, and he is not too proud to use it for this. Then he says the thing that matters. There is a woman in Winslow who fed the troop trains in the war, and they are closing her house on Friday, and nobody has so much as bought her a cup of coffee for it. She fed your men, he says into the phone, over and over, to one post after another, all afternoon, on their way out, a lot of them through Winslow. Now, get this. They're closing her kitchen and sending her home with a handshake. A pause while he listens. I'd take it as a kindness if some of you came to supper Thursday. Last night the dining room's open. Tell the ones who came through here, tell them Opal's cooking one more time. He calls until his voice goes rough. He calls the local paper and tells the man at the desk, there is a story here worth more than the closing notice. And to put a line in tomorrow's edition, troop train men, come to Winslow Thursday. The Harvey house is open one last night. Print her name, he tells the deskman. Not mine. Leave mine out of it. He could have walked away after the coffee. He could have left the $5 and the clean conscience. Instead, he stood at a wall telephone in his shirt sleeves for the better part of an afternoon and rang every veterans hall within 300 miles, asking nothing for himself, putting a woman's name into one receiver after another. When he hangs up the last call, the light is going gold in the windows. Opal Maddox is standing in the middle of her half-stripped dining room watching him, the crates of plates around her, the folded cloths in her arms. Why would you do that? She says. Because a man with a broom told me what you did, Wayne says. He takes his coat off the hook. And because somebody should have done it 15 years ago. Get your girls. Put the cloths back on the tables. For what? She says. For who? For Thursday. He sets his hat on. Cook like there's a train coming. 50 door. She does not believe it. She tells the girls it was a kind thing a stranger said and not to get their hopes up. But she has them iron the cloths anyway, and she has them shine the brass back up, and she goes to the market herself on the last of the company's account and buys hams and potatoes and the makings of 40 pies. Because if even a dozen of them come, she will not have them eat off a bare table. Thursday at 5 o'clock, the dining room is set the way it was set in 1940. White cloths, heavy plates, the brass shining, the coffee urns full and steaming. Opal Maddox stands at the kitchen door in a fresh apron with her hair pinned the way she has pinned it for 33 years. And she waits, and she tells herself it is all right if no one comes. At 5:10, a truck pulls up out front. Then a car with gallop plates. Then two more. The first man through the door is in his 40s, leaning on a cane the war left him with, a Marine pin on his lapel. He takes off his hat in the doorway, and he looks at the room, and he looks at the woman at the kitchen door, and his face comes apart. Ma'am, he says, you handed me a sandwich through a window in January of '44. I never forgot it. I told my wife. I told my kids. He cannot get the rest of it out. 1 second. 2, 3. Then the door opens behind him, and they come. They come in 2s and 3s, and then in a steady stream. Grown men now, in their 30s and 40s, filled out and going gray at the temples. A few of them on canes, in their good coats with their service pins on. Men who drove 200 miles on the word of a phone call. Men who had been boys leaning out of troop train windows in the dark with their hands open. They fill the lunch counter. They fill the dining room. They stand along the walls when the chairs run out. Some of them brought their wives. Some of them brought the grown children of the men who did not come back, to stand in for a father who ate his last home-cooked supper handed up through a window in Winslow, Arizona. And Opal Maddox cooks. She cooks the way she did in the war, fast and right. And her girls carry the plates, and the room fills up with the sound of 200 grown men eating hot food off real plates and weeping without any shame at all. They line up to take her hand. Each one says the same thing in different words. I came through here. You fed me. I never forgot. She had thought no one remembered. 200 men drove through the night to tell her they had never once forgotten. A tall man stands at the back of the room by the door, his hat in his hands, his coat on, and he watches it, and he does not go up for a plate, and he does not let anyone make a fuss over him. This is not his supper. He only made the telephone calls. When a man recognizes him and starts toward him, Wayne shakes his head once, quiet, and nods toward the woman at the kitchen door. That one. Not me. Her. There was a guest register on a stand by the dining room door, the way the Harvey houses kept one, a big cloth-bound book where travelers signed their names. It had sat closed for years. That night somebody opened it, and one by one the men signed it on their way out. Name and town, and under it the thing they wanted set down at last. The unit they shipped with, the year they came through. Fed here, winter 43, on my way to Saipan. And never forgot it. 200 names, 200 lines of ink in a book that had been about to be hauled out with the crates. The tall man signed it last, on his way out the door, while Opal was turned away in the kitchen with her hands full. He wrote one line and his name, and he did not show it to anybody. Then he put on his hat and walked back down the platform and caught a later train west. And he was gone before Opal Maddox ever crossed the room to thank the stranger who had stood at her telephone all afternoon. She found out who he was 3 weeks later. The old redcap told her. He had known the face the whole time and kept it to himself, the way the man had plainly wanted. By then, it did not matter what he was called. What mattered was the register, and she kept it. The Harvey house closed that Friday, the way the calendar said it would. They tore out the kitchen. The trains stopped stopping, but Opal Maddox took the guest book home wrapped in a dish towel, and she kept it on the shelf by her chair for the rest of her life. And on the bad days, she would take it down and read the names of the boys she had fed, who had grown old and come back to tell her so. She never married. She had her girls, she always said, meaning the thousands of young Harvey women she had trained over the years, and the thousands of soldiers she had fed. All of them somehow hers. She lived out her years in a small house in Winslow, 3 streets from the tracks. And when she heard a train at night, she still woke up out of habit, ready to make coffee for it. She died in 1979, the same year the tall man did, though neither of them ever knew the other was gone. The guest book went to the granddaughter of one of her Harvey girls, one of the young women she had trained and stood beside on that cold platform, who had named her own girl after Opal and raised her on the story. For 18 years it sat in a box. And then in 1997, a young couple bought the ruined old Harvey house in Winslow and began to bring it back. The white cloths, the brass, the coffee. And the granddaughter heard they were looking for anything from the old days, and she took down the box. She turned the pages. 200 names from one night in 1957. The ink gone brown. Old soldiers and their units and their thanks. She read every one. And on the last page, in a man's hand, in pencil, pressed hard, was the line nobody in the family had ever noticed, because nobody had ever turned all the way to the end. Fed 3,000 a day and asked for nothing. The Army gives medals for less. This one's overdue, ma'am. J. Wayne, 3,000 soldiers a day. Count the days of the war, near 1,400 of them, and the number runs past 3 million plates of hot food handed up through train windows in the cold, asking nothing back. She had never counted. She always said there wasn't time. There was always another train. But a man passing through had stopped long enough to put the number where someone would find it, and to sign his name under it like a witness, and then to leave before anyone could thank him for it. Have you ever had someone finally say out loud the thing you did, the thing you thought the whole world had forgotten? It does something to a person. It tells them it counted. It tells them somebody was keeping the book the whole time. A man can leave a tip and a kind word and call it generosity. And most men would, and it would be enough to feel good about by the next town. Or he can take off his coat and stand at a telephone all afternoon and fill a dying dining room one last time with the men a woman fed when they were frightened boys, and write the number down in the book so it cannot be lost again. One of those is a kindness. The other one is the measure of a man. If this story reached you, do me a favor, pass it on, share it with a veteran in your life. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. There are more Duke stories coming, and unfortunately, they don't make men like John Wayne anymore.